Hi, this is Bobby Kimbrough, and welcome to Off the Cuffs. I'm excited today to have with us Mr. Bob Feikema. He is here to talk with us. He's championing a cause that is very important and very serious issue that we have, early childhood illiteracy. I'd like to welcome you to the show, Mr. Feikema. I had an issue having to practice that last name, Feikema.
Well, you said it just right.
I appreciate that.
It's great to be here, Sheriff. Thank you for having me.
I appreciate that. So, I recently met you on a Zoom call.
Right.
I was so impressed with the cause that you championed that I wanted you to come and share with us, the listeners and the viewers, as to what is this and how did you come to take on this cause, and tell us a little bit about you.
Sure. Well, I am the CEO, president at Family Services here in town.
Mm-hmm.
And actually, I've been in Winston-Salem now coming on 8 years.
Wow.
So I came down here to take that position at Family Services.
Where did you come down from?
Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania.
Yeah.
So one of the first things that often happens when a new CEO comes into an agency is you got to do a strategic plan, right?
Right.
So that happened in 2013. Our board went through a long process and came up with what our priorities were.
Uh-huh.
And among those priorities that they announced, it was kind of in early 2014, was that every child in Forsyth County ought to have access to high-quality early education programs. And we were able to have that as a goal because Family Services has been providing early childhood programs since the 1950s. And actually, we have been providing the Head Start program here in Winston-Salem, Forsyth County, actually, since 1966.
Wow.
And an early Head Start program, which is for the infants and toddlers, that's been for the past 5 years. So it's something we've done. We are a child development agency, and we know the benefits of it. We know what difference it can make for young children and their growth and development. So our board of directors said, hey, if it's good for those that we can work with, let's make it something that's available to every child in Forsyth County. And so we zeroed in on pre-K because I think that's where things are most established.
Mm-hmm.
There's state funding. There are a group of organizations, certainly in the school district, Smart Start of Forsyth County, a lot of private child care centers who serve 4-year-olds.
Right.
Or actually, it's the year before kindergarten. That's who pre-K serves. So we couldn't do everything all at once from birth to 5, so we focused on the 4-year-olds, pre-K, and said, let's make it possible in our county that every 4-year-old has access to a high-quality pre-K program.
What does that consist of? So when you say pre-K, I know that's prior kindergarten, right? So what does that consist of? What does it look like to have a high-quality program? Another issue is that, do we have that problem in this community?
Our group, which we call the Pre-K Priority, has involved about 20 organizations and about 60 people over the last 6 years now in really trying to put together a plan. And at the crux of it is high quality. You just can't have any pre-K program. You want one that has high quality standards. And a lot of those are established by national organizations, by our statewide program called North Carolina Pre-K, but they include a high quality curriculum, teacher to student ratios of no more than 10 to 1, a full 6.5-hour class day, professional development for teachers.
This type of program takes place at kindergartens, right?
Pardon?
At kindergarten.
Well, it takes place right in the year before kindergarten.
Really?
Yeah. So these are pre-K teachers, and they get special training in this. As a matter of fact, Winston-Salem State University is the greatest area or university in our area that trains teachers to teach in pre-K. They have what's called a birth to kindergarten program. And they've been very involved with developing our plans for pre-K. I'd also mention Forsyth Tech. They have associate's degrees for assistant teachers, that 2-year degrees. So we in Forsyth County are very fortunate to have 2 great institutions of higher learning that train teachers, because that's the crucial ingredient to high quality.
So tell me, when you look at that problem, where do you find that problem existing at in this area?
Well, the problem that motivated us to work on this is the fact that when you look at what happens when children enter kindergarten, and maybe when you check again when they are in 3rd grade, we're finding that our children, too many of them, are at risk when they enter kindergarten of not learning to read. And by the time they get to 3rd grade, they are not proficient in reading or math. And that's about half of all kindergartners, about half of all 3rd graders don't reach the level that they need to be at. And in addition to that, those percentages are significantly worse for children of color. So African American children, when they enter kindergarten, almost 2/3 are at risk of not being able to read well in later years. And Hispanic children, it's even a little bit higher.
So why do you think that? You know, a lot of times we always address the fruit from the problem, but never address the root. Why do you think that is?
Well, it's such a combination of ingredients. We know that these are not the only disparities that we're dealing with. You can look at education, you can look at income, you can look at health, you can look at housing, you can look at safety. And all across those spectrums, we find that there are disparities, and not just our community. We're not unique. I think most communities, and again, we're in the midst right now of examining that more closely. So all of these things contribute to, I think, children having difficulty when they get into school with really being prepared to learn, because there just aren't the resources and the supports that they need. Pre-K, not a silver bullet. It's one avenue for providing that resource, for providing the supports that young children need so that they are prepared to enter school ready to learn. Good pre-K programs, talking about high quality, also involve families, involve parents, and make sure that they're a part of that child's learning, because they're the child's first teacher. So that's what a comprehensive pre-K program involves.
So now that we know the problem exists, and we know that we have that problem that exists right here in Forsyth County, how do we begin to close that gap? How do we begin to fix that problem?
Yeah, well, I think there's work being done on a lot of fronts. You know, the ones that I mentioned, hopefully there are groups that are in these different sectors that are trying to address our affordable housing problems, are really trying to look at how we can have equitable employment opportunities. Our piece of the action is around preparing young children and supporting their families. And so we're one important part of what needs to be a more comprehensive effort. But what has been shown over the years, there have been so many studies done of early childhood programs and pre-K, some of them coming right out of North Carolina. Duke University and Chapel Hill have done some long-term studies of the benefits of pre-K. And what they find is that a high-quality pre-K program can close those gaps that I was talking about, can make it so that we don't have those huge disparities, and that more children are entering kindergarten ready to learn, and more children are proficient by third grade reading.
You know, one of the things that I applaud you for taking on this cause and championing this cause, but on the other hand, when I sit and I hear conversations like this, not when I first met you, but the Zoom call we were on last time, and I was listening to all the things that were being said, this is a problem that has existed for years, And I'm just amazed that, you know, I watch the news and I see that they found water on the moon. We sent a man to the moon. We're talking about sending a whole nother team of people to the moon, but yet right here on Earth, right here in Forsyth County, a problem that has existed for years, we're still talking about fixing it rather than it should have been fixed, to where we know that we have children who are illiterate. We know that by starting with the level of illiteracy, that it's difficult to compete in this society. You know, if you can't read and write and compete, you're basically going to be without eating or having trouble to eat. And so I'm just amazed that, you know, when you and I were talking before we started the show, was getting people involved in this, getting companies to be a part of this. I'm just appalled that there's not an outcry of people saying, what do you need? I mean, I'm just appalled at that. You know, we have so many things going on in our society now. And it's just really struck a nerve. You know, we have the pandemic. You know, we have the social unrest. We have two major pandemics, as far as I'm concerned, happening in our country. COVID-19 and social unrest. Both of them are contagious and both of them are deadly. And we're working on a cure for COVID-19, but are we working on a cure for this illiteracy? Are we working on a cure for the affordable housing? Are we working on all of these cures that keep us socially unrest? Are we working on cures like that? And for you to come all the way from Pennsylvania and to step into this role and champion that cause. I applaud you for that. But I want you to know whatever you need from me, I'm going to give you all the support I have. And that's why I wanted you here, because I'm just blown away by some of the data that you gave when we talked about how it affects so many things going forward. Because you're right, if a kid is behind at the pre-K level, he's mostly behind at the first grade level, and they're trying to catch up the rest of their school years. They're trying to play catch up to be able to just to function at the grade level.
Yeah, no, it's I think everybody would agree that the earlier you take on and invest in a situation and a problem, the better results you can have. That before it gets to the point where you really have to do an extra amount of work. Again, education is like that. I think everybody in education does say that if we can start earlier to prepare our children for how they can learn well, that's a whole lot easier than waiting until junior high or high school when it's all that harder. Not that it can't happen, but it's all that harder. So, when you mention how it is that these kinds of situations can go on and on for years without really they're making a lot of change. I mean, I would say that we have a committed sector in early childhood development in our community. And I don't want to overlook that. We have a number of great organizations. The school district is offering pre-K programs, making use of the federal funds that they get for that purpose. Smart Start of Forsyth County certainly has been shepherding all of the state funds that come in. The Child Care Resource Center it really helps many families find adequate child care. So there's been a lot of hard work that's been done. The key thing is, how does it coalesce in a way, though, that really gives it a focus on what we can all do better together? And that's what pre-K is about. That's why we called it the pre-K priority, because it is a matter of priorities. What are our priorities?
I think that sometimes we use that word priority. It's almost like when I travel sometime and they may throw a tag on my bag that say priority, but yet when I get my bag at the baggage claim, it's been beat up, it's damaged. And I'm saying, well, how much priority did they really give my bag, right? Did that just mean I'm going to get on the plane? Or are they going to make sure it's not damaged? So when people use this word priority as it relates to our children, they use this thing where we giving this particular issue priority. It takes me back to that example. How much priority are we really giving this? Or is this just verbiage and as my mother would say, lip service?
Right. Well, one of the things that we wanted to do to make it a priority is to really have support from across the community.
Yes.
And that was one of the things that came up when you attended our breakfast Zoom meeting a couple weeks ago. It's not enough for us in the early childhood field to say this is important and a priority. We need to have civic and community leaders from across the community saying, yes, this is a priority. We need to do something about it. And we have gone out at this point to seek support from organizations. And again, I appreciate that the sheriff's office has become one of those supporters of pre-K.
That's a no-brainer.
Well, and we've been really, I think, really grateful to find that when we issued the call to organizations to step up and say that they support high-quality pre-K, and not just support it, that we need to take action on it, that we've had over 50 organizations from across the community in business, in education, in healthcare, in social services, the faith community, who've signed a declaration to say, yes, we support establishing a early childhood education task force for Forsyth County to really develop a plan that we can implement. And again, I know task force, sometimes they get appointed and they make a report and that's it. Well, that's not what this is about. Our group, the Pre-K Priority, has been doing research and studies and issuing reports for the past 3 or 4 years. We have done all the groundwork. It's all there ready to be put together by having a group of individuals, diverse, inclusive, from around the community, who really can take all this information and say, here's what we need to do, here's how we can do it in our community. And so we're really looking to have our elected officials establish that formally, an established early childhood education task force that can issue a full report to them about the actions that we can take to really move us forward to making high-quality pre-K available to more and more children in the years to come.
I think that is essential that we make this a priority, and just not say it, but make it a priority, because we've got to apply some pressure and resources there. Because this past year before COVID hit, I always give the school system thanks. They're allowing me to come in every Thursday and work at the elementary level with some kids at a school that was having, I guess, low-performing issues, I should say. And it was interesting to me that every Thursday when I went into the school and worked with these kids, one of the things that was a factor was the ability to read, the ability to write, the ability to express themselves. And when I found out, what I found is that the kids that couldn't express themselves or the ability to read at a certain level, when called on to participate, they were reluctant to participate. Therefore, they became disruptive in the class, because a kid realizes at a certain level that he or she cannot read or write at the same level as another kid. And therefore, the rest of the kids, the rest of the population starts treating that kid differently and singling that kid out, thus causing that kid to make some turns that he or she probably would not have made if they could stay on track. And I know there are a lot of people out there saying, well, what role does the family play? I get it. I know there's a lot of folk out there saying, well, that's the mother and the dad issue problems. I get that. But I always come back to and say that these are community issues. These are issues that we have as a community of Forsyth, that when there's a shortage somewhere else, we have to fill in the gap. Because if not, when we don't fill in those gaps have the ability to widen to where they affect us on different parts of this county. And so for you to do that, it's amazing.
Well, families are obviously important and essential. But when a community has a issue, a problem that affects 50% or more of its children, that's not an individual family problem. As you say, that's a community problem.
That's a community problem.
And that's up to us as community residents and leaders to address it.
How big a problem would you say that is in Forsyth? You say you've been here 8 years, 9 years?
Yes.
How big a problem would you say that is in Forsyth, if you had to put it in perspective?
Well, it's been a major problem, and I think it's been recognized as such over those 8 years and before.
Wow.
I think I mentioned some statistics earlier on about the percentage. And unfortunately, one of the things that has occurred with one assessment of whether children are at risk of not learning to read in later grades, there's an assessment tool for that that's been used from 2013 through 2018-19. And what's happened over that period of time is that we started out with half or more of children being at risk of not being able to read in later grades. That's gotten worse over the last 5 years, significantly.
So you're saying it's gotten worse?
That, according to that assessment, that one assessment, which is consistent over those years, the percentage of children who are at greater risk of not reading well has increased for all demographic groups, for white children, African-American children, and Hispanic children.
I think that we're better than that as a community to have had a problem exist for so many years, especially when we're talking about children, right? We're talking about our future, to realize that there is a situation, there's an issue, there's a problem that has gotten worse or getting worse than it was previously 5 years ago that involves illiteracy. I think that issue there needs to be on every print, social, television, media. There should be an outcry for that.
Yeah. Well, and the thing about it, too, that it even extends beyond literacy, because one of the earmarks of a high-quality pre-K program is screening and early assessment and health issues. So a child in a high-quality pre-K program is going to get a physical exam, dental, hearing, vision, and developmental. And that can happen, certainly pre-K when they're 4 years old. In other programs like our Early Head Start program, it happens earlier.
So why is that not being done?
Resources, having the funding.
I just, when people say that, I just refuse to believe funding is an issue, right? Well, when we have two of the finest healthcare systems in the world here, we have Baptist, we have Novant,
right?
Not to mention whatever. We have one of the premier universities here, Wake Forest. We got Winston-Salem State, Salem. I could go on. Not to mention the wealth of company and businesses that do here. So funding can't be an issue to me. It just can't be.
Well, it's funding decisions and priorities.
Funding decisions and priorities.
It's not that there's not enough money.
I'll go with that one.
It's how do we decide to use it. I would mention that there have been investments made. There's a program called Forsyth Connects that I think initially was at Novant. I think it's also being extended to Wake Forest Baptist Health, that provides all new mothers in Forsyth County with the opportunity for a home visit, I believe with a nurse, to really make that transition from the hospital to the home, to see how the child is doing, to connect the parents with any resources that might be helpful. So that's something that, again, has been taken on in Forsyth County that does affect our younger children. The Nurse Family Partnership is a program that I think was initially funded by the Kate B. Reynolds Charitable Trust. Now it's operated out of the Department of Public Health. And that also provides for home visits over a 2-year period, from birth to age 2, for families with young children, especially families who are lower income. That's a nationally renowned program. It's been validated as being effective, I think, and I may be wrong on this, but at one point I think it was serving maybe 200 families. Our Early Head Start program right now serves 120 families with children from birth up to age 3. We just put in a proposal to double that recently. We'll see if we're successful. So there are efforts, but when you talk about a 200 here or 120 there, when actually the need is more in the hundreds, if not thousands, we have a lot of work to do.
Wow. So let me ask you this. I know you're time sensitive today. In a perfect world, what would you need, or what would we need in this community to even start to break even, to even turn the corner with these numbers, since we're getting worse than we were over the last 5 years? What is it going to take in a perfect world? And you have been studying this trend, this issue, this problem. What would it take from what you know about it to turn the corner?
Yeah. That's the task of our task force. But what I would say is our task force has to look at all of our resources that we have: educational, philanthropic, business, faith, and our public dollars, the taxes that we pay locally as well as at the state level, and really decide how are we going to make the best use of those resources to move us forward. Because, as you said, we have the resources. We just have to make them a priority, and we really need to advocate. In some instances, and I think this came through at the meeting that you attended a couple weeks ago, we really need to be looking at how many resources we're getting from the state through what's called the North Carolina Pre-K program. That's a state-funded quality pre-K program. But when you look at Forsyth County and where it stands relative to other counties, we're among the lowest in the state.
That's sad.
In terms of the percentage of eligible children who are enrolled in the program.
That's sad.
And so that's on us. Again, it's not, I've heard some people say there is no such thing as a youth problem. There is no such thing as a child problem. The problem is with the adults in the community who are not providing what children and youth need.
You know something that was frightening to me, and I'm thinking about illiteracy and the ability to read. Several nights ago, I was coming toward the office, and car was speeding on the highway. I mean, just darting in and out of traffic, just being a danger to the motorist. And I cut my blue lights on, and I finally got the car stopped at Knollwood. We were headed 40 east, and I got them stopped at Knollwood, right there on the side before you go up on Knollwood Street. And I got out of my car, walked up to the passenger side, and asked for the license and registration. And I went back to my car, and you know what was frightening to me? I looked at the license, and I could not read it. And I was like almost about to have a panic attack because I couldn't read the license. And I realized that I needed my glasses.
Mm-hmm.
And so I started fiddling around in the car for my glasses, and luckily they were in my bag. But by the meantime, another car had pulled up to back me up. And when I put my glasses on, I could see clearly exactly what it was, and I was able to call into communication to run the name on the license. And when you start talking about illiteracy, I can imagine how frustrating it is to see words and cannot read them or make them out. That little incident was so frustrating me until I put my glasses on that I said, oh my goodness. And so when you started talking about the ability to read illiteracy, I started saying, wow, that was like having words in front of me on the license, looking at them, and I could not read or make out what it was. Wow.
Mm-hmm. No, you're at a tremendous disadvantage, and it shows up all through adult life.
A horrible disadvantage.
The disparities that begin with young, birth 3-year-olds, 4-year-olds, that continue through K through 12 and then beyond are disparities that why do we have disparities among adults in our community as well, and you can trace many of them back to those disparities existing when they were little kids. Wow. So, it starts early. When you mention about the putting your glasses on in order to read, literally that's one of the things that we come across in early childhood programs with vision screening. We will find in an early vision screening that a child is having a problem with vision and even needs the glasses at that age. And it can be unknown for a while, and the parents or even a teacher can wonder, why is this child maybe acting up because they can't see clearly, or why aren't they learning? So that, again, back to what one of the key elements of a quality early childhood program is: screening, assessment, health. Very essential if you're going to, and nutrition. Let me add that one as well, if you're going to have a foundation for learning.
Wow. Wow. I was having a good day. I was until you. Well, I'm gonna need another Mountain Dew. I can tell you that now, right?
Well, let me say, to me, this has been a good day because we just finished up this campaign to get organizations to sign on to declare their support for this initiative. And I have really feel gratified by the response of organizations across the community. Some of them who I think made an extra effort.
You should have every organization in the city of Winston and the county should have signed on for that.
Well, we may have what do they call it? An organization that represents in different ways a broad membership across the community. I'm pleased to say that Greater Winston-Salem, Inc., formerly known as the Winston-Salem Chamber of Commerce, is a declaration of support signer. So the business community.
Yes. Yeah. Well, you know what? I've enjoyed you coming by today. I really have. I hope that you have shed a lot of light to those that are watching us. You definitely have shed a lot of light to me. And, it makes me look, and, you and I talked about it. It has nothing to do with resources. It's a decision where to dispense the resources. Mm-hmm. And if we don't feel that is priority, that we need to dispense our resources toward illiteracy, then we are worse than being blind. And, as Helen Keller said, there is something greater than being blind, and that is to have sight with no vision. Mm. And for us to not realize that we need to do that, that's a problem. But I want you to know I appreciate you for bringing it out, for being a truth teller, for being a game changer. And you have my support, the support of the Office of the People. Anything we can do to help you, please count us in. And I thank you for taking time. I know you're a very busy man, for coming by today. Anything you want to leave with us?
Well, just that I certainly thank you, Sheriff, for your support. Very much appreciated. And I think I feel a real sense of confidence that this community is going to rise to this occasion and is going to make a difference for our young children. And I think that's the thing that you need, and hopefully that all of us can share as the momentum starts to build, that this is something that we can do something about this. It's not that we can't. It's the decisions that we make about how we want to invest our resources in what better place than in our youngest children.
Well, I can tell you, everywhere I go in the circles that I travel in and out of, I'm definitely going to talk about it. And I'm going to ask, the question, why are we here and what are we going to do to get out of here? I appreciate you for coming by. Thank you, as always. You're more than welcome to come by anytime you like. It's my pleasure to have you with me at Off the Cuffs today. Thank you for watching us, and have a great rest of your week.